Welcome back to the Prison Stories YouTube channel. I am your host, Abaddon, and I have another video for you today. And in this video, we're going to talk about a couple of Crips that rushed my partner and I in a cell during a cell search. So if you enjoy any of this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We have a lot more coming, including I'm thinking about doing videos to give advice to upcoming corrections officers, and maybe some shit inmates say videos, which like shorts. So we got a lot of ideas planned. I'm even thinking about doing prison reaction videos and law enforcement reaction videos. So let me know if that's something you want to see. If it is, be sure to subscribe, and we are going to be getting these videos pumped out quickly. But for now, let's get into today's video. So this video takes place around the I want to say about 8 o'clock at night. That's usually when I do my cell searches. Yeah, I think just before 8 o'clock, around 7:30ish. I don't know, somewhere around there. That's usually when I like to time my cell searches. So basically on this night, my partner, we had to do a couple cell searches. So he did one and I did one separate. I was in a different section than him, but the way my unit was laid out, the sections were completely see-through. You know, as a lot of sections, you can see through the whole section. So I can see into his section from the section that I'm in. And I'm coming out of that section. I look up, and one of the main things that pisses me off is when my partner or myself is searching a cell and inmates are trying to look into the cell. So when I do my cell searches, I usually close the door to about a crack. So if I need to close the door, I can just close it real fast. But I also do that to kind of block the inmates from seeing in the cell. For me, there's a couple red flags when inmates look into a cell while you're searching the cell. One, they could be trying to see if you're noticing something they're trying to hide in there, which could technically go to our advantage, because you can see where are they looking, where are they trying to see if I've looked. Oftentimes your back's to them and your back's to the door, so you can't see where they're looking. But the main reason why I don't like inmates to do that is they could be planning on rushing you in the cell and attacking you or holding you hostage. It's happened before. I have been assaulted during a cell search, and you can check that video out on the channel. The video is titled Prison Stories, Punched by an Inmate, and I go over the whole story of when I got, technically it was elbowed in the face during the cell search, but it was a pretty big ordeal. It was a 7-second fight, but a lot happened in those 7 seconds. So anyway, that's why I don't like it when inmates try and look into the cell while you're searching it. So as I'm coming out of the section I was searching a cell in, I look up to my partner, and the inmate's trying to like sneak a peek into the cell that he's searching. And I go into that section, and I put my gloves back on, the I'm not messing around gloves, the ones that are, well, they're not resistant to like needles and stuff, but they're the gloves that you put on if you're ready to like do some dirty work, as in search deeply, or potentially inmates get combative, stand your ground with. Anyway, so I go up there, and there's 2 inmates that live in that cell. One, I believe, is down on the bottom level somewhere. I don't know what he was doing, somewhere in the section. And then there was one, I believe the dude was, he went down the tier a little bit because he saw me coming. And my partner comes out of the cell and he says, "You're good." I'm like, no, you're not. Hold on. And normally I never override what another officer does or says or orders, you know. But in this case, he didn't know what the inmate was doing. So I'm like, no, you're not good. Go back down to the end of the tier, which was the first red flag in this scenario. The inmate did not go to the end of the tier. He went about 5 feet down and stopped. And so we go back into the cell, and my partner's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "He was watching you search the cell." He's like, "Oh." So then he's like, "Okay, gotcha. 10-4, rubber ducky." I'm like, "We're going to take a better look at this cell." You know, no matter how well you search a cell, if the inmates are looking suspicious, you can always do a second go over or a better job. The inmates are very, very creative, and they're too smart for their own good. They learn hiding spots. No matter how good you think you are at searching a cell, I'm sure they've thought of how to counter that. They know their officers that are on the unit. They know the ones that are good and the ones that know stuff, so they try and counter that. So I'm like, you know what? It's always good to have another person go over the cell with you and go over it again yourself. So that's what we did. But we go into the cell, and the other inmate that was not looking in the cell, he opens the door and runs in the cell and says, "What the fuck are you guys searching my fucking cell for?" And at that point, I'm like, I think this guy's just fucking with us, because normally I don't have inmates come at me like that. I've been on that unit for years. I have a very good rapport with the inmates there, and they know that I won't back down from anything. I'm not a big dude, you know, but I've been in fights, and I will go to the hospital and getting my ass kicked if it meant standing my ground, doing my job, and not letting the inmates control what I'm doing or the unit does. And because of that, a lot of the inmates don't even try to get in my face, because they know that I've been there so long. I'm not afraid of them. I'm willing to get hurt, and I'm willing to do my job. So they're like, you know, and they respect that. A lot of times, true, like, believe it or not, inmates will respect the officers, that even though, you know, you can be strict at times, but they respect that you do your job, because at the end of the day, the inmates know they need the officers there that are not afraid to do their job, whether it's from gang fights. A lot of times when inmates have gang fights, they don't actually want to fight those fights, but they have to, because it's a political game. And if they don't, well, then, you know, we can go into a whole different video on that. But gangs have to fight, whether they want to or not. Anyway, so I was completely caught off guard by this inmate saying that. I thought he was just messing with me. So I'm like, okay, well, just go out of the cell. He's like, no, well, you're going to tell me what the fuck you guys are doing, search my fucking cell. I'm like, okay, get the fuck out of the cell right now. And he refuses to. So I'm like, all right, tell my partner, I'm like, look, we need to get out of the cell. We do not want to be cornered in a cell. It's the last thing we want. So we exit the cell. I try to reach our echo point on my radio to let everyone know something's going down. Everyone needs to get here immediately. But on this wonderful, glorious night, our echo point was not responding at all. Just probably eating a sandwich. I wonder if it was good. It had to have been a pretty good sandwich. But if you're in law enforcement, if you're in general, doesn't matter if you're in corrections or any other law enforcement, know your other officers. Know when you're like, you know, I don't think something's right here. Which is exactly how the units in my area work together, you know. So luckily, even though our echo point wasn't responding, the other unit's like, hey, do we need to get there now? But we didn't need them. My sergeant and our other partner on the other side of the building, they could tell something was going down, so they just came over anyway. I kept telling these inmates, rack in now. And these guys are Crips, and they're young Crips. Like, they're the types of Crips that I'm surprised are even allowed to be part of the Crips, because they bring too much heat and too much attention to the gang. And like I said in my last video, if you've watched that, gangs don't like a lot of attention brought to them or their section. Like, a lot of gangs in prison have in their bylaws to respect the officers. Do not bring unwanted attention to us. So these guys are loudmouths, and they are not afraid to throw down with officers, which, you know, at the end of the day, any inmate will, but a lot of times the inmates want their section to run under the radar with no attention. So as I keep telling these inmates to rack in, get into the cell, you know, we'll figure it out from there. They refuse. One inmate goes downstairs. I don't know what he's doing. Another inmate goes downstairs saying, no, fuck that. I'm making a phone call. I'm like, bullshit, you're making a phone call. He's like, no, I'm going to make a phone call. I'm like, all right, well, control. Turn off the phones in the section. This fucker's not going to make a phone call. Hell no. So we get there. My gloves are on. And the one inmate, the older inmate, not older, but, you know, older than the other inmate, he is just sitting at the phone. He knows he can't make a phone call. He knows he's kind of in deep, and he can't just say, oh, I'm sorry. So he's just kind of riding it out. He's slowly coming to the realization that he needs to, like, be the bigger person of the situation when it comes to him and his cellie. He needs to not let his cellie is real young. I think he was barely over 18. I don't know. So he's feeding off his energy, and I think he recognized that. And he doesn't want him and his cellie to get sent to max. You know, the Crips rely on each other in those sections, and if two Crips go to max on the same night, that's, you know, a couple men they're down in that section. If I have my hand on my OC, I'd rather throw down than use OC. OC sucks. breathing it in, risking getting it on you. If you and all your partners are all hacking up lungs from it, it's harder to do your job. Will I use it? Have I worked through it? Yes. Have I been sprayed? Yes. Maybe I'll put that video on the channel at some point. We'll see. But if I can avoid using OC, I will. My hand's on my OC. I'm not sure if I want to draw it, but my hand's on my OC. And the inmate sees my hand on my OC. And he's like, spray me, bitch. Spray me. And I'm sitting here like, this guy is so amped up, I doubt it would even affect him. He'd probably just laugh right through it, wipe his eyes off, and just stand there staring at me. So, you know, and then my sergeant, he's like, hey, come here. He gets one of the inmates out of the section in the horseshoe. So at least then there's not two inmates side by side able to attack us. So then my sergeant is in the horseshoe with the little bit older inmate. And then there's me and two partners, 3-on-1, in the section with the younger inmate, the one that's more amped up. And we're like, all right, you know what? Let's get to the floor. Let's leave the section. Let's figure it out. So we take the inmates to the floor. And at this point, I don't give a fuck if I get punched. I really don't. I've already been punched once. You know, we're gonna handle the situation. It's a dangerous job. It's what we signed up for. So we go to the section, and the older inmate, he's just sitting at the table. He's not talking. He understands, like, they're kind of boned at this point. He's just not trying to make the situation worse for them. The other inmate's in my face. Like, he is in my face. And oftentimes I can tell when an inmate has mental health issues, but I'm looking in this inmate's eyes and he does not have mental health issues. He's just immature. He's a young, immature dude. He's full of fire and adrenaline and energy, and he's just pissed. And you know, I actually kind of try and cut inmates slack when they're in these types of moods, because odds are they're just having a bad day, whether it's family issues on the outside, they lost a date, they got kicked out of a class, or this or that, their girl cheated on them. It could be 1,000,001 reasons that would put an inmate in a bad mood. So I try and cut them some slack. And with this inmate, he's just going off, and I'm like, dude, you need a fucking attitude adjustment. And he gets more in my face. I'm like, what are you gonna do? I have 4 officers here. What are you gonna do? Do your worst. I don't care. I kind of say that knowing he's not gonna do anything. At this point, his celly's not really backing him up. His celly's just sitting down, and there's 4 officers surrounding him. He's not gonna do anything. And then I carefully explain to him, you are in prison, and you're a gang member. Now here's why I am straight up with, you need a fucking attitude adjustment. You need to change your attitude. Being a gang member, it's already gonna be harder for you to parole. You're gonna have a bad reputation. You're gonna look bad on paper to the parole board. You're a gang member. You do not need to be a gang member, and then when you go to the parole board, they see you've had arguments with staff, you've been causing situations, you've been getting write-ups, you've been getting this and that and this and that. It's not gonna look good. So yes, you need to change your fucking ways, and you need to work on correcting yourself. I have no problem helping inmates that truly want to help correct themselves. But why would I waste my time helping an inmate that doesn't even want to help themselves? Now, you may be asking yourself, whether you're a former inmate or a CO, former CO, other cop, did we charge them for this? And I did not. I'm not one that likes to write inmates up a whole lot. And a part of that is because when you're an inmate and you're in prison, you are going through a lot. You're already in a pretty shit situation. Hammering inmates with write-ups doesn't help them want to succeed or give them the motivation to succeed. Sometimes if you show the inmate you're willing to work with them, it goes a long way. I've done that many, many times. This situation was just too much of a potential us ending up in the hospital situation to just brush under the rug. Now, I want to say the inmates may have gotten written up after the fact. I can't remember, but I've had enough inmates square up on me that if an inmate wants to square up on me, it's just part of the job. It's part of the gang unit. You need to learn how to get yourself out of those situations the best way you can and communicate with the inmate. The biggest thing, and I think the only reason why we didn't get assaulted that night, is the way I communicated with the inmates. The second that inmate rushed us in that cell, could we have used force? Could we have, you know, taken it to a greater scale and made a huge incident out of it? Of course. But did it need to do that? Did we need to go that route? because we don't know what other inmates might jump in. We don't know, what the potential risks of fighting inmates in the section would have been. So you working on trying to just work it out, get the inmates out of the section, away from other inmates. Now, did we rack in the rest of the section? Of course, we racked all the other inmates in. Now, if you're getting into law enforcement or corrections, if you ever rack in a gang member, or if a gang member ever gives you issues and you rack in the rest of the section because of that inmate, pay attention to the other gang members in the section. Twice have I had an almost fight. One of them was the fight when I got punched in the face. But there was another time just recently where I had a pretty big situation with actually another Crip. I racked in the section for it. And I was in the section talking to the inmate. If I remember, yeah. I don't remember what I was doing. No. It was this situation. I've had 3. This situation as well. And I'll use this one as an example. When we were at the phones talking to the 2 inmates, the Crips behind us didn't close their cells. They left those cell doors open in case they had to jump in. That is a very, very dangerous situation and risk to be in. So if you ever are in corrections, now getting into, you rack a section in, pay attention to the other gang members in the section because they might not close their doors. When I got punched in the face, I remember we racked in the whole section. Bloods, they stood outside their cell door just in case they needed to jump in. So, but yeah, that wraps up this video. Hopefully it isn't too long. Yeah, it was probably, that was probably the second most intense situation behind my most previous video that I've had. But I have a lot of ideas coming. Let me know what you want to see down below. I would love to do a video where I answer questions down the road that people may have of prison. So if you have any questions, send them, and eventually we'll have enough to make a video out of them. And again, if you enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, I'll see you guys later.